10 extraordinary women you won't believe actually exist. Okay, so here's the thing. Every now and then you come across a story that makes you put your phone down. Actually put it down and just stare at the wall for a minute. That's what these women do to you. And I'm not talking about generic she broke barriers stuff. I'm talking about a 64-year-old who swam through shark-infested waters for over 2 days straight. A teenager in the Mongolian mountains hunting with golden eagles. A factory seamstress who ended up in space. These aren't inspirational poster quotes. These are real, verified, happened on this earth human beings. And, honestly, they make the rest of us look like we need to get our act together. Pull up a chair. This is going to be a ride. Valentina Tereshkova. Let me paint the picture. It's 1963. You're a 26-year-old woman who works at a textile factory in the Soviet Union. You spend your weekends jumping out of planes because, you're into parachuting as a hobby. Normal enough, right? And then the USSR calls you up and says, "We'd like to send you into space." That was Valentina Tereshkova's actual life. On June 16, 1963, she blasted off aboard the Soviet spacecraft Vostok 6 and became the first woman ever to travel into space. She orbited Earth 48 times in nearly 71 hours. And here's the jaw-dropping part. By the time she landed, she had spent more time in space than every American astronaut combined up to that point. Every single one of them combined. She was selected from over 400 applicants. They trained her on weightless flights, jet aircraft, isolation tests, 120 parachute jumps in total. And as Vostok 6 lifted off, Tereshkova reportedly shouted, "Hey, Sky, take off your hat. I'm on my way." Come on, watch it. Search Valentina Tereshkova Vostok 6 launch 1963 on YouTube. The original Soviet footage of her mission is up there, and it's surreal to watch. 2. Ada Lovelace. The internet, your smartphone, every line of code that has ever existed. All of it traces a lineage back to a woman who lived in Victorian England and died at age 36. Ada Lovelace, daughter of the poet Lord Byron, was introduced to mathematician Charles Babbage when she was just 17 years old. He was designing a machine called the Analytical Engine, essentially the world's first general-purpose computer. It never got built, but Ada saw something in the blueprints that nobody else could. In 1843, she translated a French academic paper on Babbage's engine and added her own notes. Notes that were 3 times longer than the original paper. Inside those notes was an algorithm to calculate Bernoulli numbers using the machine. It's considered the first published computer program in history. And then she went further, suggesting that computers could someday compose music and handle tasks far beyond pure arithmetic. She saw the future of computing a full century before the first electronic computer was switched on. 3. Junko Tabei. Junko Tabei stood 4 feet 9 inches tall. The Sherpa guides initially didn't think she'd make it. Japanese society, in the 1970s, still largely believed women belonged at home. She heard it all. She climbed Everest anyway. On May 16, 1975, Tabei became the first woman to summit Mount Everest. But the wild part is what happened 12 days before she got there. An avalanche hit her camp at 6,300 meters. She was buried under the ice and snow, unconscious. A guide dug her out. And then 12 days later, she was standing on top of the world. She didn't stop there. By 1992, she had become the first woman to complete the 7 summits, climbing the highest peak on every continent. She did it while raising a family, teaching, and being told repeatedly that she shouldn't be out there at all. She was also the 36th person, male or female, to ever stand on Everest's summit. She reportedly preferred to be remembered as that, as the 36th person, not the woman who, because in her mind, she was just a mountaineer who loved mountains. 4. Nadia Comaneci, July 18, 1976. Montreal Olympics. A 14-year-old Romanian girl finishes her routine on the uneven bars, and the scoreboard flashes 1.00. The crowd is confused. The announcers are confused. The scoreboard wasn't capable of showing 10.00. The engineers who built it never thought in a million years they'd need 4 digits, because a perfect score in Olympic gymnastics was considered impossible. Nadia Comaneci had just made the impossible happen, and then she did it again, and again, and again. By the end of the Montreal Games, she had earned 7 perfect tens, 3 gold medals, and had become the youngest all-around Olympic gymnastics champion in history. She had been discovered by legendary coach Bella Caroli at age 6, when he reportedly knocked on her classroom door, looking for a student who loved gymnastics. She was found hiding under a desk, pretending to be a gymnast between classes. The rest, quite literally, is history. 5. Malala Yousafzai. There are stories that feel like fiction, and then there's Malala. She grew up in Pakistan's Swat Valley, where her father ran a girls' school. When the Taliban took over the region and banned girls from attending school, she was 11 years old. She started blogging anonymously for the BBC Urdu service, writing about life under Taliban rule. Her identity was eventually revealed. The Taliban issued death threats. She kept going to school. On October 9, 2012, a gunman boarded her school bus and shot her in the head. She was 15. She survived through emergency surgeries in Pakistan and then in Birmingham, England, and woke up in a hospital bed with half her skull reconstructed. And then she kept going. Within 2 years, at age 17, Malala Yousafzai became the youngest person in history to win the Nobel Peace Prize. When she learned she had won the Nobel Prize, she was sitting in chemistry class in Birmingham. She heard the news and went back to her physics class because, as she put it, when you win the Nobel Peace Prize for education, you have to finish your school day. 6. Diana Nyad. You have to understand what the Florida Straits are. It's 110 miles of open ocean between Cuba and Key West, shark territory, jellyfish territory, unpredictable currents, and open water with no resting point, no boat to grab, no shark cage. It is one of the most dangerous stretches of water on Earth for a swimmer. Diana Nyad first tried to swim it in 1978. She failed. She tried again in 2011, failed. Tried in 2012, failed twice more. Then, on September the 2nd, 2013, at age 64, 6 decades on this planet, she stepped into the water in Havana, Cuba. 52 hours and 54 minutes later, she walked onto the beach in Key West, Florida, barely able to speak due to jellyfish stings swelling her mouth, having become the first person in history to complete the swim without a shark cage or protective equipment. When reporters reached her, she slurred through swollen lips. 1 is, we should never ever give up. 2 is, you are never too old to chase your dreams. 3 is, it looks like a solitary sport, but it is a team. Then she collapsed into the arms of her support crew. 7. Waris Dirie. Waris Dirie was born in 1965 into a nomadic Somali family, one of 12 children, growing up near the Ethiopian border. At 5 years old, she underwent female genital mutilation, one of the most extreme forms, performed without anesthesia in unsanitary conditions. At 13, to escape a forced marriage to a man decades older than her, she ran away on foot through the desert, alone, with no money. Speaking no English, she eventually made it to London, worked illegally as a maid at her uncle's embassy, then as a janitor at McDonald's, and taught herself to read and write English at the YMCA. A fashion photographer discovered her in a McDonald's. Within years, she was on the cover of magazines worldwide, a Bond girl in the James Bond film The Living Daylights, and one of the most photographed women on Earth. In 1997, she walked away from her modeling career to become a UN Special Ambassador for the elimination of FGM, the same procedure she had survived as a child. She founded the Desert Flower Foundation in 2002, established medical centers across Europe for FGM survivors, and received the French Legion of Honor in 2007. By the time the WHO estimated over 130 million women had undergone FGM, Waris was already the loudest voice in the world demanding it stop. 8. Aisholpan, Nurgaiv. Picture this. The Altai Mountains of Western Mongolia, temperatures dropping to minus 40 degrees Celsius. A 13-year-old Kazakh girl sits on horseback with a golden eagle on her arm, a bird that weighs up to 8 kilograms with a wingspan over 2 meters, capable of taking down a full-grown fox. She's not just holding it, she trained it from a hatchling, and she's about to compete in the Golden Eagle Festival, a centuries-old competition that had, until that day, been exclusively for men. Aisholpan Nurgaiv, born in 2000 into a 12-generation lineage of Kazakh eagle hunters, became the first girl ever to compete and win the Golden Eagle Festival in 2014. She didn't just participate, she beat every adult male competitor in the field. Photographer Asher Svidensky captured her image. It went viral, and documentary filmmaker Otto Bell tracked her down in the mountains. The resulting film, The Eagle Huntress, 2016, was narrated by Daisy Ridley. received a Golden Globe nomination, and introduced the world to a teenage girl who had quietly shattered a tradition 1,000 years old. She was asked once whether she thought it was unusual for a girl to do what she does. She reportedly looked at the interviewer like the question made no sense at all, which, honestly, it didn't. 9. Florence Nightingale. Most people think they know the Florence Nightingale story. Lady with the lamp. Crimean War. Nursing hero. End of story. Here's what most people don't know. Florence Nightingale was also a pioneering statistician who essentially invented the pie chart as a communication tool and used it to change government policy and save tens of thousands of lives. When she arrived at the military hospital in Scutari during the Crimean War in 1854, soldiers were dying not from battle wounds but from preventable diseases, cholera, typhus, dysentery, caused by filthy, overcrowded conditions. She knew it, she had the data, but she also knew that government ministers wouldn't read tables of numbers, so she invented what she called polar area diagram, a circular chart that made the mortality data visually undeniable. She sent them to the War Office. Policy changed. Death rates dropped from 42% to 2% in a matter of months. She was offered a state funeral when she died in 1910. She declined it, requesting a simple grave in Hampshire. She was the first woman to be admitted to the Royal Statistical Society. She turned down a marriage proposal at 30 because she felt called to work. She wrote over 200 books, pamphlets, and reports in her lifetime. She is, among other things, the reason hospital wards are kept clean. 10. Chien-Shiung Wu. In 1956, two Chinese-American theoretical physicists, Tsung-Dao Li and Chen-Ning Yang, proposed a theory that violated one of the most fundamental assumed laws of physics, that nature is perfectly symmetrical. Known as the conservation of parity, this principle had been accepted doctrine for 30 years. Li and Yang said it might be wrong. No one believed them. They needed someone to run the experiment. They called Chien-Shiung Wu, already considered the most skilled experimental physicist in the United States. She designed and ran the experiment at the National Bureau of Standards, working with cobalt-60 at temperatures near absolute zero. Her results were unambiguous. Parity was not conserved. The symmetry everyone had assumed was built into the universe was wrong. It was one of the most significant experimental results in 20th century physics. In 1957, Li and Yang won the Nobel Prize in Physics for the theory Wu had proved correct. She was not included. The Nobel Committee has never explained the omission. She went on to win the Wolf Prize, the Comstock Prize, and the National Medal of Science. She was the first living scientist to have an asteroid named after her. Asteroid 2752 Wu Chien-Shiung is out there right now, orbiting the sun. What's striking, when you look at all 10 of these women together, is not just what they accomplished, it's the obstacles that were specifically designed to stop them. The Taliban, the Nobel Committee, decades of mountaineering tradition, scoreboards that couldn't process a perfect 10, physics departments that called their male colleagues first. And in each case, the obstacle either moved or got irrelevant because the woman on the other side kept going. None of them set out to be symbols. Aisholpan just wanted to hunt with her eagle. Junko Tabei just loved mountains. Valentina just liked jumping out of planes. But history has a way of finding the people who refuse to be told what they can't do. Now go put your phone down and stare at the wall for a minute. You've earned it.